You don't repeat patterns because you're broken. You repeat patterns because they keep you safe. I'm Kim Gross, and I'm the host of Masks Off for People Pleasers and Perfectionists. Today, I want to share with you about my 5-step power pathway framework. I'm going to do it through the lens of sharing what I have been going through recently, and I have been able to unpack another pattern of mine at a deeper level. Just when you think like, okay, yeah, like I mastered that pattern, that doesn't show up for me anymore. I'm acing that. Lo and behold, it shows up again, so that you have an opportunity to go even deeper and then to up level even more. It's like that proverbial peeling back the layers of the onion. Okay, so my 5-step power pathway is this framework that I use daily. It's a repeatable process that you can use to take yourself through absolutely any trigger, any struggle, any discomfort, any pattern that you see. And so the first thing is that you have to, the first step is being aware of your patterns. That's what P stands for power. It's an acronym. And P is awareness of your patterns. The very first step to becoming aware is not necessarily fixing or having to take action. It's about just having this awareness. Most of us are living on autopilot, living out our patterns and not living out a life. What do I mean by that? Our patterns are so familiar to us that they feel like it's who we are. They feel like it's just a part of our identity, but it's not. It's not your identity. It's actually a pattern that you started to play out early on, and you've been doing it over and over, that the pattern is so ingrained, you don't even know that it's a pattern. And that's why we just keep going on autopilot. So I'm here to help you break that cycle of living on autopilot so that you can live a life that you desire, that you create, filled with joy, abundance, peace, gratitude, flow, and ease. I'm not saying that it's a 1, 2, 3 step, and I'm not saying that it's easy. This inner work, this healing work, is not for the faint-hearted. Is that how they say it? It definitely is something that can be heavy, and it requires diligence, and it requires you to stay with it. But I promise you, if you persevere, you will go from a place of being in a people-pleasing and perfectionistic prison to having more paradise. Patterns are not necessarily problems. They're just more information. When you notice yourself over-explaining, shutting down, you're people-pleasing, you're perfecting, you're performing, you're spiraling out, you're shaming yourself. If you're doing any of those things, I invite you to get curious and ask yourself, what just happened? What did I feel? What story did I tell myself? Or what pattern am I playing out here? It's a way to pause, and that's where the power is. When you take that moment to pause, you can choose what to do next so that you don't automatically go to reacting or to playing out the old pattern. Okay, so I have been uncovering a pattern of my own, so let me share.
Hey, it's Kim here, interrupting your regularly scheduled podcast episode to let you know about an opportunity to go deeper into this work. I invite you to head over to Amazon.com and pick up your copy of my book, Free to Be: A Pathway to Inner Liberation. If you are looking to unhook from people pleasing and perfectionistic patterns, if you're looking to have a better way of identifying your patterns and then how you can unhook so you can be free to step outside your comfort zone, free to have more meaningful relationships in your life, free to be your true self without hiding behind a mask any longer. If you desire any of this, then I encourage you to pick up your copy. And if you enjoy my book as much as I loved writing it, please go on over and leave a review on Amazon. You can leave a star review or written review. Now back to your regularly scheduled podcast episode.
I am going to be a little bit vulnerable here, and I'm going to be fully honest. That's what this podcast is for. It's about taking off my mask and showing you in real time how I go through this process. Do the inner work and I take off the masks so that I can have more freedom to just be my true self. I have been feeling this pull, and I've talked to you before on other episodes about the pull versus pushing and forcing energy. I'm feeling this pull or calling to up-level my podcast and my business, to take it to the next level. It is most likely going to require that I make a pretty substantial financial investment. I'm not sure exactly what it's going to cost, but I know that in order for me to go where I want to go, it would require me to invest some money. If I'm being completely honest, I would say that over the last 3 years, while I have grown in many ways, I wrote a book a year and a half ago, stepping outside my comfort zone. I have invited some big guests on my podcast. I've been on other people's podcasts. I've been doing this podcast and putting myself out there for 5 years. I do take some risks. If I'm being completely honest, this is the vulnerable piece. I still have been playing small with my business. The reason that I've been playing small is because, well, one, there's a very old wound that I'm not good enough or not capable of shining my light and maintaining that. And I've outlined some of those stories in my book, Free to Be: A Pathway to Inner Liberation. So if you're curious about more of that origin piece, you can grab a copy of Free to Be on Amazon. I have this way that I'm still playing small, but even more so, what I really was able to uncover is, and I was somewhat aware of this, but I got even more clear at a deeper level of this pattern. So going back to the financial piece, you have to know that if you're new to this podcast, thank you so much for being here and stopping in to take a listen. I appreciate that. And if you've been with me for a while, I thank you for your loyalty and for being a part of Masks Off. Or if you read my book, you would also know that I haven't earned money outside of the home in 26 years. My son was born 26 years ago. Before that, I was a teacher, but then I chose to be a stay-at-home mom, and I haven't really gone back into the workforce. All of these years, I was a stay-at-home mom. My husband has been the sole provider. He's been an amazing provider. And at some point, because of that dynamic, that hierarchy of he's the provider, I'm just the stay-at-home mom. And mind you, when I even say that, I hear it because there is so much value in staying home and taking care of your kids, in my opinion. And yet I still have this place where I have allowed him to be the authority because he's the one who makes the money. And a person is more valuable. This is a belief system and a pattern that I've adopted from a long time ago. The belief system is that the person who earns the money, and the more money they earn, the more valuable they are. So I have given him the position of having authority when it comes to business or money stuff. So over the last few years, anytime there's been a few conversations about me and my business, because I avoid them. So I'm a conflict avoider, and that is a very common trait for a people pleaser. I avoid those conversations with a 10-foot pole. Why do I avoid them? Because I fear that if I have the conversations, when I have had the conversations, they didn't go well. He would either give me an energy or imply or insinuate that I am not business oriented, that I'm not good at business, that what I'm doing is wrong, that I'm falling short, I'm failing. All of that energy, all of those comments, I allowed them to make me feel small. Now, mind you, that's just the way he was conditioned. So he's not maybe intentionally trying to be hurtful because he was conditioned, and that's his own journey, that the more he can provide as a man, the more valuable he is. And that's a very true belief for so many men, right? That goes back to even cave day times when the man had to go out and get the food and provide for the family. So it's understandable. But then when that belief system meets my belief system and my wounding from childhood, it collides, then I would feel small. And subconsciously, unconsciously, I would not take bigger risks to grow or up-level my business and or podcast, especially if I'm spending or investing a bunch of money. So how does the 5-step power pathway work? All right, I already talked about P is being aware, having awareness of the pattern. So you can see how much I unfolded with you just now to become aware of my patterns. I unraveled so many nuances and bits and pieces of where I avoid conflict, feeling small, feeling less than. And then more importantly, one that I want to specifically name is that I'm avoiding my husband's disapproval. I write about that in my book as well as being one of the masks that we can wear. And so I thought that I would just share with you a little bit from Free to Be a Pathway to Inner Liberation on the chapter on the fear of disappointing others. And I write that patterns can be handed down from one generation to another, and that is absolutely true. I can say for certainty that my mom also had that pattern as well. There are countless times throughout my life that I've done things for or with others because I didn't want to disappoint them. I've already recounted the Christmas wrapping marathons. That's in an earlier chapter. So feeling that others were disappointed in me was like hearing fingernails scratching on a chalkboard. I learned at a very early age that if I didn't do what my mom expected of me, she would be displeased with me. As a result, she would withdraw her love until she was done being angry. This is how a person controls you. This is how they get you to do what they want. They withdraw their love, they use guilt, they will show their disapproval, especially when you're a child. You can learn very quickly that if you want to avoid your caregivers, the ones who are supposed to love you and take care of you and provide for you, if they're withdrawing their love, that's very, very scary for a young child. Okay, back to the book. I couldn't tolerate the discomfort of feeling that someone could withdraw their love at any given time. What I came to understand is that my fear of being abandoned was at the core of this pattern. When we consistently cajole someone into meeting our needs, it becomes less likely that their honest and compassionate center will emerge. And then I just go on to talk about, if we want someone to actually meet our requests or our wishes, then we can do it in a healthier way. The important part is that it's the fear of abandonment, it's the fear of someone withdrawing their love, which is why we avoid the disapproval of another. Someone being disappointed in us or just showing their disapproval can be so powerful. And that is exactly what I became super clear on in this pattern for myself with my husband, is that if I invested money to up-level my podcast or my business and I got no money in return, like I made $0, my fear would be that he would be so disappointed and he would disapprove with his comments and his energy and possibly even his withdrawal. He would not be happy whatsoever. And that is what was keeping me stuck in the pattern. So the second step of the 5-step power pathway is owning your shit. So I have to own that this is my pattern. He's not going to do anything to make it easier for me. Oh, gee, Kim, I'm realizing that my disapproval of you is causing you to play small. Let me stop doing that. The only one who can change that is me. I have to take full responsibility that I cannot change or control people, places, and things. I can't control how he shows up. I can't control what he thinks, what he believes. That's his stuff. My stuff is, what am I going to do? Am I going to allow that to keep me stuck, to keep me playing small? Or am I going to do the work to heal myself so that I can move forward and break through? And that brings me to the next step, which is W. And W is the willingness to feel the hurt, to feel the feelings, to put balm on the wound, to clean out the wound. It's infected. It's been since I was a little girl. So it's like, what can I do to heal myself? And a lot of that is just my adult self just really showing up and being there for that part of myself that feels wounded, that is afraid of the disapproval, that's afraid of the judgment and everything else that goes along with it. And for me to just be with her, like, you're okay. It's okay if you invest the money and it doesn't work out. It doesn't make you a bad person. We'll be okay. The next step is E of power, which is embracing or integrating the wounded part. The W and the E go hand in hand. So it's the willingness to feel the feelings, to feel the hurt. And then E is about embracing that part of me, integrating the part of me, that child self that was so afraid or so hurt every single time my mom got upset with me and withdrew her love, the part of me that felt so abandoned. So it's about integrating her. And then finally, R is taking radical responsibility. That can mean a number of things. It can mean that I take a tiny step forward. It can mean that I do more research on what would actually be involved in up-leveling my business or podcast and doing cost analysis. Is it really worth it? Using more discernment, allowing my adult self to come in and be discerning on it, and then taking the next steps, one step at a time, following the breadcrumbs, using my intuition, all the stuff that I talk about in other episodes. So there it is laid out for you, POWER, 5-step power pathway. And I invite you to ask yourself, as you reflect on your own life and some of the patterns, what pattern keeps repeating in your own life? And there probably are several, but maybe one that just comes to mind. And can you notice what emotion usually comes before it? So for me, with this pattern, I can actually feel myself feeling small. Like I contract. It's almost a feeling of contraction and trepidation. I feel like I don't want to deal with this conflict. I don't want to feel these feelings. I don't want to deal with the disappointment. And then the third question that you can ask yourself is, how has this pattern that keeps showing up for you been trying to protect you? Because remember, that is what our patterns do. They came into existence because at some point, your subconscious mind said, this is a really great way to protect me. The only problem is that now as an adult, those patterns are not protecting you anymore. They're not serving you anymore. And if anything, they're keeping you stuck from creating the life that you desire. So what I want to offer is this. If you're listening to this episode and you are resonating and you feel like this could be something that might be valuable for you in terms of helping you to unhook from your own patterns, and you're not quite sure how to do it on your own, or you don't feel like doing it on your own because you might allow life to get in the way, you get busy, and you just don't make the time to do the work, but you are so sick and tired of repeating the same old pattern. This pattern for me with my husband has been showing up for freaking decades. If you're so tired of the pattern showing up and you don't want to do it alone, then I invite you to reach out to me. You can go to my website, Kim Gross Coaching. You can book a call there, or you can just email me and just like, you know what, I'm a little bit interested. Can we chat more? Let me know. And at the very least, I can honestly say that if you pick up a copy of my book that I've been talking about throughout this episode, that I guarantee you the book in and of itself will bring you added value.
Hey, Kim Gross here. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Masks Off for People Pleasers and Perfectionists. I invite you to hop on over to my website, kimgrosscoaching.com. Right there on the front page, there's a quiz for people pleasers and perfectionists. You can find out if you have tendencies. You can also get into my newsletter where you will be given valuable content every week on different topics I share here in the podcast. And if you really did enjoy this episode, if you found it helpful, if you found it valuable, please go to, if you're on YouTube, go and subscribe. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, then I invite you to leave a review. You can even do a star review. It doesn't have to be a written review. If you know of someone who can benefit from this podcast or this particular episode, please share it with them. I'll see you next time.